Thank you for stopping by. This is Wacky Races for the PlayStation, published by Infogrames in 2000. It was released for Windows, PlayStation, Game Boy Color, and I think there was an edition on the Dreamcast. This was primarily a UK release, and I think it was locked to the region. There's no official US release that I can find. This was actually an odd one, and I stumbled on it by accident, and I decided to give it a try based on the title. Wacky Races was a cartoon series about a car race, and I recognized it. It was one of the many shows made by Hanna-Barbera, and the thing with this, though, the cartoon was released in 1968. That's 32 years before this game dropped. Even if we consider the cartoon ran in syndication in the early 1980s, and you could eventually see reruns on the Boomerang channel in the 90s, I think this was, and still is, kind of an obscure property. It only had 17 episodes, and the characters themselves, they're actually kind of rare within the Hanna-Barbera world. So it seems a little odd to me that they try to make a game on this, based on weird, rare characters. I'm guessing the licensing rights weren't cost prohibitive, but at the same time, I don't think they would have helped the sale of the game either. I guess I just don't see this as having a lot of character recognition when it was released. And, I don't know, maybe it was just cheap to make. They did make it, so obviously someone thought there was potential for profit somewhere. It's a racer, and you have a possible total of 11 vehicles that you can play, and 3 of them are unlocks. Each racer has a unique vehicle that is somehow representative of their character. They look weird, cartoonish, of course. They're oddly shaped. It's what you'd expect. This was based on a cartoon for kids of the late 60s, so we're not expecting to race Ferraris here. There's no real story to speak of, at least not that I can see. It's just a series of races. You can race in time trials, championship, multiplayer, and something called super gadgets, because each vehicle has their own unique sort of items that they can basically launch to change the outcome of the race. Like all kart racers of this style, there's more you can do besides just accelerating and braking. You have mobility power-ups, which will help you move along, and those aren't really just speed boosts either. They're oddball effects that go with it. When we talk about gadgets, you have to try to use these against your competitors, and they're going to look different for every racer. Basically, they're going to be your offensive weapons, and you're going to have to pick them up and trigger them at the right point. You press the L1 button to get a quick rear view, which is actually really helpful for knowing where the other vehicles are. Especially when they're right behind you, it's very important. Maybe it's not so useful if you're in last place, though. The thing about this game that I found, it's fairly rough handling from the start. I got lost on my very first game. You just can't hold down the accelerator and hope to steer your way through the course. You're going to go off track really fast. Also, the flow of the courses, at least some of them, they're really difficult to follow. The very first race I competed in was super confusing, and I fell off the track on the first lap. It doesn't just put you back on the track to continue either. You have to get back on it by yourself. My issue here was that I fell into a sort of a pit in the desert, and I had to drive my way out. And you can't drive up the embankment to get back on the track. I actually had to drive backwards, and not knowing the course, it took me forever to get back on the actual path, and by that time I'd already been lapped. Not a great way to start a new game. It would seem to me, for a racing game in particular, you need to keep people engaged in the actual race, not searching for the track. Especially on the very first one, you need to make sure that these early laps are easy and understandable. Like all games, you have to hook your audience and try to not give them something that's really frustrating from the get-go. Don't create an excuse for somebody just wanting to put the game down. I will say, this game does seem to have a whole lot of courses to race, so there's plenty of racing content if you do get into this game. I think the graphics and sound, they're reflective of the original PlayStation, and they're fine if you know what to expect. These are early 3D graphics, and they're representing characters from a cartoon. So the source material is two-dimensional. It's certainly not the same as the cartoon, but they look like the cartoon enough, and they're recognizable. It was early 3D. This is what you'd expect from this type of game from that era. The sounds are fine for a racer. I guess you could call this a family-friendly racer, and the music effects, they're pretty generic. And there's no pop music that I can hear that's licensed for this game. It all feels pretty generic. Personally, I'm not connected to these characters in any major capacity. I've always liked the Hanna-Barbera properties, but there's a giant pile of characters in that pool, and with such a large group, with so many recognizable characters, there are still a ton that really weren't around very long and never made much of a mark. And that's the pool of characters we have here. I think to really enjoy a racer like this, you really got to be a fan of the characters. They're just too obscure for me. There are plenty of games that are like this that handle way better and probably offer much more recognizable characters. For me, this is way too clunky to drive around these courses, and I don't like fighting with the controls so much. It felt like I was driving a sheet of plywood. Things were slow, it was difficult to turn, and it just felt like a labored experience. There are better racers from this generation for sure, things that I do have a stronger connection to and handle much better. The South Park Rally game is far better to handle than this, and it's in a similar style. It's just, I don't know, faster, and it just handles better. I suppose if this had better racing to it, I could appreciate it more, and I wouldn't care so much about the character thing. But it just doesn't have the handling I'm looking for, and I'm always struggling with these controls, so it's kind of a bummer. Well, that is all I have today for Wacky Racers for the PlayStation. Thanks for stopping by for a look, and I hope to catch you on another video.